Yeah, hello, welcome to my new tutorial. Today we are continuing our little series of tutorials about CSS fundamentals. I want to show you something about the display property. Today it's kind of very important to know about this, about the behavior of this property, as this is really fundamental for building of any web page. As you can see, I already prepared a little text for you with some tags here. I made a span tag here, included some text in it, made a bold word in the span text. Then I included the unordered list with all the display properties we are talking about in this tutorial. And I made two div containers which are containing two span elements. Here you can see the result of that. During this tutorial we want to now see through manipulating these elements how the display property is working actually. So we are starting with the first paragraph, which is in this case actually a span tag, and the span tag is an inline element in HTML, as well as the link tag A, the bold tag B, or the image tag. They don't start a new line in HTML, so they are just in the float of text, typically for tags and in this case as well images. So let's have a look at how we can manipulate this upper part here, especially this small word. This is like an inline tag B, so we wanna, for example, give it a background. So we are catching it. We are via CSS now. Make the background, for example, gray. So as you can see, it's now marked up, and we want to give it a padding of 15 pixels, a margin of 15 pixels, and let's say, last but not least, we give it as well a width and a height of 100 pixels. So what can we discover now? The width and the height is not making any change to this element, so we actually can comment that out. And what about the padding and the margin? Inline elements are accepting margin and padding, but in the flow of the HTML elements they are just accepting the horizontal values, not the vertical ones. So as you can see here, we are having a padding and a margin respected by the other surrounding HTML in the horizontal way, but not in the vertical one. So you see the line height, let's say, in this area is still the same. So the margin and the height here, the padding, what you can see through the gray background, is there, but it's not accepted by the surrounding HTML. So, and this is actually the main thing when it's about inline elements. They are like in a float of text, and naturally in a float of text you don't want to change the line height through manipulating these elements. So now let's continue with block elements. Block elements in HTML, as I wrote here for you already, have mostly a predefined display value. HTML elements, and these block elements, for example div containers or unordered lists which you are using in navigations, text block elements like the paragraph, or headings like H1 but there are H2, 3 and so on, and they are defining a new start and end of a line when displayed in a browser. So they are like breaking the flow, and they mostly use the whole space of the displayed browser, so the whole width actually of the screen, if you are not changing this via a CSS through the width parameter. So let's have a look at these div containers we defined here at the bottom. We want to give these containers as well some background. Let's make it a light green, a light gray. Okay. And we give it as well a margin and a padding and a width and a height. So we give it a margin of, let's say, as well 15 pixels, padding as well 15 pixels, and a width of let's say 200 pixels, height of, let's say, 200 pixels. So, and that's already it, and you can see perfectly here what happens now. Block elements define a new line and by default need all the space of the screen. So if I am now disabling this width, you see it's all the space which they have in this window here adapting to it. So, and in comparison to inline elements, block elements accept width and height properties and all the padding and margin values, so including the vertical one. So you have here now margin and padding as we had here up with the inline element, but you see that this 15 pixels is as well. I am disabling the height now that you can see it better. It's as well now in the vertical area accepted and respected by the surrounding elements. So let's make it here a bit more. So you see if you 45 pixels now in the horizontal and in the vertical. So in addition, you can add width and height to manipulate it as you want. But as you can see, though I defined here a width for these div containers, they are still marking a new line. So here's still some space. Normally you would use now floatings, so that this div container at the bottom is now floating to the other one. But for this, look at my other tutorial about floatings and clearings. We want to actually continue now. So with the inline block elements, this is the third very important CSS value for the display property. And I made some examples. I want to make some examples here now as at the bottom. So you can see here there's a span element, and inside that which is an inline element, and inside that I included some EMs, so to make these words italic looking, as you can see here. And about these three words, I want to change now the value into inline block. Let's give them first the background that we can better see the changes. So let's make the background here in this case dark green. So you see it has a background now, it's still everything in the flow of the text and nothing changed so far. We give it like up a margin of 15 pixels and a padding of 15 pixels and as well a width 50 pixels and a height of 50 pixels. So you can see it's now behaving as they are inline elements like up. So the horizontal values of margin and padding are respected, the verticals are not respected, and the width and the height is at all not respected here. Now we want to change the whole behavior by just typing in here via CSS inline block. So as you can see, by making these elements inline block, they are behaving as follows. They are actually still inline elements as they are in the flow, they are not making a new line all the time, but they are respecting the width and the height here, 50 pixels, and the margin and the padding in the vertical as in the horizontal value. So you can see with this inline block you can really change the behavior of text inline elements very good, and as well with block elements you will have the same. So when you have here div containers, block containers, they will as well now not all the time start a new line. If you've seen some of my other tutorials about navigation, this inline block is very often used for defining a horizontal navigation. So they're actually kind of an alternative to floating elements. I want to show you some example here shortly with our unordered list. We have here up. I just want to make out of them, out of this list elements, as well now inline block elements. So I will give them as well a background. Let's make it red, and I make the display now inline block. So, and as you can see, they are making now a perfect line for a horizontal navigation, and this is kind of an alternative for floating. But for that, for deeper knowledge of that, have a look at my navigation, horizontal navigation bar, where I realize this behavior through floating, but as well through inline block. Yeah, and actually that's all about it. We have the last value for display now, which is display none. This display none is actually putting the element out of the screen totally, so it's like invisible for the other elements. It's still in the DOM, but it is like not visible, and as well for screen readers or things like that. So it's don't use it too much. I want to show you here, for example, like an example here with a small word here, ups. So I can just delete this word by making it display none, and as you can see, the whole text is now ignoring this DOM element, and yeah, it just vanished actually. What is actually as well kind of important to know about this display property is that you can change naturally inline elements or block elements through this via this CSS into block element and inline element. So I can make this small word here into a block element by just typing it in actually, and making it a block element, and you see it's immediately changing. Now I can activate as well the width and the height, and yeah, it's behaving like a normal block element, though it is naturally in HTML an inline element. Yeah, so that's actually all. You, as always, can use to get some practice. Here is JSBin, which I am highly, as always, highly advise. And there are of course different tools on the web as well as JSFiddle. You can use this as well, so as you like actually. Just have a look about these tools. They are perfect for learning this HTML, CSS and JavaScript, and you always and immediately see what you are doing actually. So I hope you had fun, and I as well hope we are hearing next time. Goodbye.